Hashtag the silent forest captain Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the rough bark of the towering tree, feeling the alien texture beneath her gloved hand. The forest stretched endlessly in every direction, a cathedral of silver-barked giants that seemed to reach toward the pale orange sky of Kepler 442b. 3 months had passed since the survey team from the USV Meridian had crash-landed on this world, and still the silence unnerved her. "No bird songs," whispered Dr. James Chun, the expedition's xenobiologist, as he knelt beside a cluster of phosphorescent fungi. "No insect buzzing. Nothing." Elena nodded grimly. In all their explorations across a dozen worlds, they had never encountered such profound quiet. Even barren planets had wind, the crack of shifting stone, or the distant rumble of geological activity. Here, the very air seemed to absorb sound, creating an oppressive blanket of stillness that made every footstep feel like an intrusion. The team of 12 humans had been conducting a routine planetary survey when their ship's navigation system failed catastrophically. The crash had been survivable, but the Meridian was beyond repair. Their emergency beacon had been transmitting for weeks with no response. They were stranded, possibly for years, on a world that felt increasingly hostile despite its breathable atmosphere and abundant plant life. "Captain," called out Sergeant Torres from deeper in the forest. His voice carried an edge of urgency that made Elena's hand instinctively move to her sidearm. "You need to see this." Elena and Dr. Chun made their way through the undergrowth, their boots sinking slightly into the spongy forest floor. The vegetation here was unlike anything in Earth's fossil record. Massive fern-like plants with translucent fronds caught and scattered the alien sunlight, while thick vines wound around tree trunks in perfect spirals. Everything seemed too organized, too deliberate, as if the forest itself had been carefully designed. Torres stood at the edge of a large clearing, his rifle held ready but pointing toward the ground. His face was pale behind his helmet's visor. "Ma'am, I've been monitoring this area for the past hour. There's something moving out there, but it doesn't match any of the scans we've taken." Elena raised her binoculars and scanned the clearing. At first, she saw nothing unusual. More of the same silver-barked trees, patches of bioluminescent moss, and the ever-present spiral vines. Then, something caught her eye. Movement in the shadows beneath a particularly massive tree. "There," she breathed, adjusting the focus. What she saw defied immediate explanation. Shapes moved with purpose among the tree roots, but they were unlike any animal she had encountered. They were roughly the size of large dogs, but their movements were too fluid, too coordinated. Their bodies seemed to shift between solid and semi-translucent, like living mercury given form. "Are they hostile?" Chen asked, pulling out his own scanner. Before Elena could respond, one of the creatures stepped into a patch of filtered sunlight. The sight made her breath catch in her throat. It was beautiful and alien beyond description. Its body seemed to be composed of the same silver material as the tree bark, but it flowed and rippled like liquid. Delicate appendages that might have been limbs or tentacles extended from its main body, touching the ground with what appeared to be reverence. "They're not just moving randomly," Torres observed. "Look at the pattern." Elena watched more carefully and realized he was right. The creatures were arranged in a precise formation around something hidden among the tree roots. Their movements were ritualistic, almost ceremonial. They were tending to something with obvious care and attention. "Dr. Chun, are you getting any biological readings?" Elena asked. Chun consulted his scanner, frowning at the display. "It's strange, Captain. I'm detecting carbon-based life signs, but the molecular structure is unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be silicon-carbon hybrids, which should be impossible under these atmospheric conditions." As they watched, more creatures emerged from deeper in the forest. Dozens of them, all moving with the same purposeful grace toward the gathering in the clearing. The sight was both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. Elena had led expeditions across 14 different worlds, but she had never seen anything that suggested such complex social behavior in a non-technological species. "They're intelligent," she whispered, more to herself than to her companions. One of the creatures suddenly stopped its movement and turned toward their hiding place. Elena felt a chill run down her spine as what might have been its head oriented directly toward her position. For a moment that felt like eternity, human and alien regarded each other across the clearing. Then, the creature made a sound, the first sound they had heard from any living thing on this planet. It was hauntingly beautiful, like wind chimes made of crystal singing in a gentle breeze. The other creatures immediately stopped their activities and turned toward the human's position. "Should we retreat?" Torres asked quietly, his hand tightening on his weapon. Elena considered their options. The creatures showed no obvious signs of aggression, but they were clearly aware of the human presence. Running might trigger a pursuit response, while staying might be interpreted as a threat. The decision was made for her when the creature that had first spotted them began to approach their position. It moved with deliberate slowness, its body rippling and shifting as it navigated around the larger trees. Other creatures followed, creating a loose semicircle that gradually closed in on the human position. "Easy," Elena said softly to her team. "No sudden movements. Keep your weapons lowered but ready." As the lead creature drew closer, Elena could see more details of its extraordinary anatomy. Its surface was not simply silver, but seemed to contain swirling patterns of color that shifted like oil on water. What she had initially taken for appendages were revealed to be incredibly complex manipulator organs, each one apparently capable of independent action. The creature stopped just 10 meters away and made another of its crystalline sounds. This time, the tone was different, less melodic and more urgent. It repeated the sound several times, and Elena began to sense that it was trying to communicate something important. "It's not threatening us," Chen observed. "Look at its posture. If anything, it seems distressed." Elena studied the creature's body language and realized Chen was right. There was something almost pleading in the way it held itself, in the rapid flickering of colors across its surface. It wanted something from them, needed something. The creature made one more vocalization, then turned and began to move back toward the gathering in the clearing. After a few steps, it stopped and looked back at the humans, clearly expecting them to follow. "It wants us to come with it," Elena realized. "Captain, that could be extremely dangerous," Torres warned. "We have no idea what we're walking into." Elena weighed the risks. They were stranded on an alien world with no prospect of rescue in the immediate future. Understanding the local life forms could be crucial to their survival. More importantly, her instincts told her that these creatures were not predators. There was something almost tragic about their behavior, something that spoke to her on a deeper level than pure survival. "We follow," she decided. "But stay alert and be ready to run if things go bad." They emerged from the tree line into the clearing, and Elena immediately understood why the creatures had seemed so distressed. At the center of their gathering was a scene of heartbreaking devastation. Scattered among the tree roots were the remains of what had once been a community. Structures that might have been homes or gathering places lay in ruins, their organic architecture crumbling and overgrown with parasitic vines. But most disturbing of all were the small forms that lay motionless among the debris. "Those are cubs," Chen said softly, "or juveniles of some kind." Elena approached one of the still forms and saw that he was right. The small creature was clearly a younger version of the adults that surrounded them, its silver surface dulled and lifeless. There were dozens of them scattered throughout the clearing, all showing signs of some kind of wasting disease or environmental catastrophe. The adult creatures watched the humans with what could only be described as desperate hope. Their crystalline vocalizations had taken on a distinctly mournful tone, and Elena realized that they were witnessing something unprecedented, an alien species asking for help. "What happened here?" she wondered aloud. Dr. Chun was already taking readings with his scanner. "I'm detecting traces of some kind of toxin in the soil, something that's specifically targeting the younger life forms." Elena looked around the clearing with new eyes. The ruins, the dead younglings, the desperate behavior of the adults, it all painted a picture of a civilization in its death throes. These creatures had lost their next generation to some kind of catastrophe, and now they were asking the humans for help. As if sensing her understanding, the lead creature approached Elena directly. It extended one of its complex manipulator organs toward her, stopping just short of making contact. The gesture was unmistakably one of supplication. Elena reached out slowly and allowed her gloved hand to come into contact with the creature's appendage. The moment of contact sent a shock through her system, not physical, but something deeper. For just an instant, she felt an overwhelming sense of loss and desperation that was not her own. The creature withdrew its appendage and made another series of vocalizations. This time, Elena thought she detected something like gratitude in the alien's sounds. "Captain," Torres said urgently, "we need to report back to base camp. The others need to know about this." Elena nodded, but she couldn't take her eyes off the scene of devastation around them. These creatures, this entire species, was dying, and they had somehow recognized that the humans might be their only hope for survival. As they prepared to leave, the lead creature did something that would haunt Elena's dreams for weeks to come. It carefully picked up one of the dead younglings and carried it to Elena, placing it gently at her feet. The message was clear: save us. The journey back to base camp was completed in stunned silence. Each member of the team was processing what they had witnessed in their own way. Elena found herself thinking about Earth, about humanity's own struggles with extinction and survival. They had come to this world as explorers and scientists, but now they might be called upon to play the role of saviors. As the sun began to set and the alien forest took on an even more ethereal quality, Elena made a decision that would change the course of human-alien relations forever. They would help. Somehow, despite their own desperate situation, they would find a way to save a dying species. The forest around them remained silent, but Elena no longer found the quiet oppressive. Instead, it felt expectant, as if the very planet was holding its breath to see what the humans would do next. #Seeds of Tomorrow. 6 months had passed since the first successful hatching in the vine and bark nurseries, and the alien forest had transformed into something Elena barely recognized. Where once there had been only silence and death, now the air hummed with the gentle sounds of thriving life. Young aliens moved through the trees like living mercury, their surfaces bright with the vibrant colors of health and curiosity. Elena stood at the observation platform they had built overlooking the central nursery complex, a network of interconnected habitats that now housed over 300 young aliens. The site never failed to fill her with wonder and pride. But today, her attention was focused on a different kind of miracle taking place in the research pavilion below. Dr. Chun had been working for weeks with a team of adult aliens to develop a permanent solution to the toxin crisis. The breakthrough had come when one of the younger humans, Ensign Riley, fresh out of the academy, had made an observation that even the experienced scientists had missed. "Captain," came Riley's voice through the comm system, "you need to see this." Elena made her way down to the research pavilion, a structure that perfectly embodied the human-alien partnership that had evolved over the months. The framework was human engineering, precise, functional, efficient, but the walls were grown rather than built, using techniques the aliens had taught them to encourage the forest itself to provide shelter. Inside, she found Riley working alongside Harmony, the name they had given to one of the most gifted alien researchers. The young ensign was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, we've been looking at this all wrong," Riley began. "We've been thinking of the toxin as an external threat that invaded the ecosystem. But look at this." He called up a series of molecular diagrams on the display. "The parasitic organism that's producing the toxin, it's not truly alien to this world. It's a mutated version of something that was already here." Elena studied the data, trying to understand the implications. "You're saying it evolved here naturally?" "Not evolved," interjected Harmony, its crystalline voice now as familiar to Elena as any human speech. The aliens had developed a form of technological translation that converted their natural vocalizations into sounds humans could understand. "Changed. Made wrong." Dr. Chun emerged from behind a bank of analysis equipment, his face grim. "We think we know what caused the mutation. The same thing that stranded us here. Unusual electromagnetic activity in this system." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "The navigation system failures?" "Exactly. This entire star system is subject to periodic electromagnetic storms that interfere with complex electronic systems. But they also cause genetic instability in certain organisms. What we're seeing isn't an invasion. It's the aftermath of an ecological disaster caused by natural phenomena. The implications were staggering. The alien species hadn't been attacked by an external enemy. They had been victims of their own star's volatile behavior. It was a cosmic tragedy that could have befallen any world, including Earth. But here's the amazing part, Riley continued. The aliens have been trying to solve this problem for generations. Look at their population distribution, their architectural choices, even the way they've cultivated their forest. Elena studied the data Riley was presenting. Slowly, a pattern emerged that took her breath away. They've been preparing, she whispered. For centuries, Harmony confirmed. We knew the Sky-Fire would return. Our ancestors saw the pattern in the stars. But we could not protect the little ones. Until you came. Elena realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had recognized an extinction-level threat and had spent generations preparing to survive it. The nurseries hadn't been Elena's idea at all. They had been the culmination of centuries of alien planning, waiting only for the right technology to make them possible. They've been waiting for us, she said in wonder. Not just any spacefaring species, specifically for someone with our particular combination of technologies. Dr. Chen nodded. The atmospheric processors, the fabrication systems, the biological sensors, none of those technologies are particularly advanced by galactic standards. But the specific combination we happen to have was exactly what they needed. Elena looked at Harmony with new respect. You weren't just asking for help. You were implementing a plan that was already centuries in the making. Harmony's surface rippled with colors that Elena had learned indicated complex emotional states, pride mixed with relief and gratitude. The star-touched were foretold. Those who would come from the sky when the death time returned, bringing the tools to save the next singing. The next phase of the project began immediately. If the aliens had been planning for centuries, then there were resources and preparations that the humans hadn't yet discovered. Harmony led Elena and her team to sections of the forest that had been carefully hidden from their initial surveys. What they found defied all previous understanding of alien civilization. Beneath the forest floor lay an intricate network of underground chambers and passages, all grown rather than excavated. The walls were living wood, but shaped and guided into precise architectural forms that served specific functions. There were vast seed banks containing genetic material from thousands of species. Archives where information was stored in complex patterns of bioluminescent organisms. And workshops where alien biotechnology had been developing for generations. This isn't a simple forest, Elena breathed as they explored the underground complex. This is a planetary library and research facility. All life knowledge is here, Harmony explained. When the star sickness comes, it touches all things. Trees, ground crawlers, sky dancers, all suffer. But we prepare. We save what can be saved. Elena began to understand the true scope of what they were dealing with. The aliens weren't just trying to save their own young. They were attempting to preserve an entire ecosystem through a cosmic disaster that occurred every few thousand years. The human technology that had seemed so crucial to building the nurseries was actually just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The aliens had already solved most of the problem. They had developed biological systems that could preserve genetic material through the electromagnetic storms, cultivation techniques that could restore damaged ecosystems, and communication methods that could coordinate efforts across the entire planet. What they had lacked was the ability to provide immediate protection for their young during the critical early stages of development. Human atmospheric processing and filtration technology had provided that missing piece. Over the following weeks, Elena's team worked with alien specialists to integrate human technology into the planetary preservation system. The nurseries they had built were expanded and connected to the underground networks, creating a comprehensive life support system that could protect not just the young aliens, but representatives of every species on the planet. The work was exhausting but exhilarating. Elena found herself learning new ways of thinking about technology and survival. The aliens didn't build machines, they cultivated them. They didn't store information, they grew it. Every solution was integrated into the living world around them, creating systems that were self-maintaining and self-improving. We're not just helping them survive, Dr. Martinez observed during one of their planning sessions. We're learning an entirely new approach to civilization. The breakthrough came when they successfully activated the planetary network. Elena stood in the central command chamber, a vast underground space where walls of living light displayed information about every corner of the planet, and watched as centuries of preparation finally came to fruition. Across the world, protected habitats came online. Genetic preservation systems began operating at full capacity. Communication networks that spanned continents carried coordination signals between distant alien communities. For the first time in generations, the planet was ready for the next electromagnetic storm. But the true test came 3 months later, when their combined monitoring systems detected the approach of a massive stellar flare, the kind of electromagnetic event that had triggered the current crisis. Elena watched from the central chamber as the storm struck the planet. The sky blazed with aurora-like displays as charged particles interacted with the atmosphere. Electronic systems throughout the human crash site went offline, just as their ship's navigation had failed months before. But the biological systems continued to function perfectly. In the nurseries above ground, the young aliens remained safe and healthy. The underground preservation networks maintained perfect environmental conditions. The planetary communication system, based on biological rather than electronic principles, continued to coordinate the global response. The storm lasted for 6 days. When it finally passed, Elena emerged from the underground chambers to find the forest changed once again. The parasitic organisms that had been producing the deadly toxin were gone, burned out by the very electromagnetic radiation that had created them. The soil was already showing signs of recovery. More importantly, the adult aliens had begun to bring new eggs to the surface nurseries. The protected environment was no longer necessary for survival, but the infrastructure remained as a testament to what could be accomplished through cooperation and trust. Standing in the forest clearing where she had first encountered the desperate alien parents, Elena reflected on how much had changed. The silence that had once seemed oppressive was now filled with the subtle sounds of a thriving ecosystem. Young aliens played among the trees while their parents tended to the careful work of ecosystem restoration. The humans had become integral parts of the planetary community. Their crash landing, which had seemed like a disaster, had turned out to be the final piece in a centuries-long preparation for survival. The emergency beacon that had failed to bring rescue had been replaced by communication systems that connected them to a galactic network of worlds facing similar challenges. Dr. Chen approached Elena as she stood watching a group of young aliens demonstrate a game that involved manipulating light patterns with their color-changing surfaces. "The analysis is complete," he reported. "The electromagnetic storms that affect this system follow a predictable pattern. The aliens have developed a sustainable cycle of preparation, protection, and recovery that can handle any level of stellar activity." Elena nodded, but her attention was drawn to something else. In the distance, she could see human and alien engineers working together on a new project, not a nursery this time, but something that looked like a launch platform. "What are they building?" she asked. Harmony appeared beside them with the fluid grace that Elena had learned was typical of alien movement. "Starseed houses," it explained. "The knowledge we have learned together must be shared. Other worlds face the sky fire. Other life songs grow quiet." Elena realized with wonder that their isolated survival mission had become something far greater. The combination of human technology and alien wisdom had created solutions that could help planets throughout the galaxy. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were pioneers of a new kind of civilization. As the alien sun set through the silver trees, painting the forest in shades of gold and purple, Elena felt a profound sense of completeness. They had come to this world as explorers seeking knowledge. They had stayed as refugees seeking survival. But they were leaving as partners in something unprecedented, a galactic network dedicated to preserving and protecting life in all its forms. The cubs were no longer gone. In nurseries woven from vines and bark, augmented with the best of human technology and alien wisdom, new generations thrived under the protection of two species that had learned to see beyond their own survival to the greater preservation of life itself. Elena smiled as she watched the young aliens play, their surfaces bright with the colors of joy and curiosity. Tomorrow, They would begin preparing for the next storm, the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove that intelligence and compassion could triumph over the indifferent forces of the universe. The forest around them hummed with life, and, for the first time since their crash landing, Elena felt like they were truly home.